That question would haunt Jiro Tanaka for the rest of his life. But on the night it all began, he didn't even know the world as he understood it was about to collapse. The military transport aircraft roared against the black sky, buffeted by winds that shouldn't have existed this far from the storm's path. Jiro sat rigidly in his seat, fingers clenched around the straps of his harness. He was 17, barely old enough to be part of a reconnaissance flight, but in his country, youth was not a shield. It was a weapon to be molded. They had been taught since childhood that America was weak, that its people were soft, that the entire society was one push away from collapse. Jiro believed all of it, because belief was survival. The storm, however, didn't care about belief. Lightning forked outside the window, blinding white and vicious. The aircraft lurched violently. Jiro heard shouting, panicked shouting, then a shrill warning siren. "Engine 2 is failing. Control is gone. We're descending too fast." Then came the sound no pilot ever wants to hear, silence from the engines. A moment later, fire tore across the wing. Jiro's world flipped upside down, literally, as the aircraft spiraled. He remembered the violent impact. He remembered water rushing in. He remembered trying to breathe and only swallowing ocean. And then, nothing. Darkness swallowed him whole. When consciousness returned, it came like a dim lamp, flickering in a long hallway. First a scent, sterile, clean, nothing like the military infirmary he expected. Then a voice, soft as though trying not to frighten him. "Hey, you're awake." Jiro's eyes fluttered open. The ceiling above him was white, too white, and smooth. No rust, no exposed pipes, no military symbols. He turned his head and froze. A woman in blue scrubs stood beside him, holding a clipboard. Her hair was tied back in a neat ponytail. Her badge read, "Emily Carter, RN." Her English was clear and calm. "You're safe," she said gently. "Don't try to sit up yet. You inhaled a lot of seawater." Jiro's heart hammered. America. He was in America. Captured. His training screamed at him, "Do not trust them. Do not speak. Do not reveal information." But Emily didn't question him. She didn't ask who he was or what he was doing. She simply adjusted his pillow and brought him water. "You're very lucky," she said. "A Coast Guard team found your wreckage by chance." Lucky. He had been taught Americans didn't rescue enemies. Everything was already wrong. Hours passed, maybe days. Jiro couldn't tell, but he understood something quickly. Emily did not treat him like an enemy. She brought him meals, real meals, not ration bars. She gave him books to help him practice English. She even apologized when she couldn't find food from his culture. Jiro studied her with suspicion at first. Americans were supposed to be arrogant, self-obsessed, and hostile. Yet, Emily's face softened every time she entered the room. She made sure he was comfortable. She spoke with genuine kindness, not the kind forced by protocol. Once, he finally asked her, "Why are you helping me?" Emily blinked, almost confused by the question. "Because you're hurt." The simplicity of her answer struck him harder than the crash. He had never been helped just because. When he was stable enough to walk, Emily escorted him through the halls. No armed guards, no locked doors, no interrogation rooms waiting behind corners. He expected fear, hostility, people whispering about him. Instead, hospital staff barely glanced at him. A few asked if he needed help finding his room. He wasn't a prisoner. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't anything. It was disorienting. Later, a quiet military detective confirmed his suspicion. "You're not under arrest," the man said. "You're just a foreign national receiving medical treatment until we determine what happened." Jiro had never heard such a concept. A government waiting for truth instead of forcing it. The idea felt unreal. One afternoon, as Jiro wandered down the hospital hallway, A blur of motion collided with him. Oof, sorry. A kid, no older than 10, stared up at him. He wore thick glasses and carried a stack of comic books pressed to his chest. Jiro stiffened, unsure how to react. The boy followed his gaze to the colorful cover of a superhero battling some giant monster. "You like superheroes?" the boy asked, voice cracking with excitement. "I don't know," Jiro admitted. To his shock, the boy shoved the comic into his hands. "Then you have to read this one. It changed my life." He grinned, a pure, innocent grin, and ran off before Jiro could refuse. Jiro stared at the comic. Someone he didn't know had given him a gift, for no benefit, no agenda, just kindness. It shook him more than he could admit. Emily eventually invited him to her home for dinner. "Nothing formal," she said. "My parents just want to meet the young man I keep talking about." Jiro hesitated. In his country, inviting someone home was political, strategic. But Emily's eyes weren't strategic. They were warm. He accepted. Her family home was nothing like he expected. It wasn't luxurious or chaotic. Just lived in. Family pictures, a cat sleeping on the couch, kitchen counters cluttered with everyday mess. Emily's father shook his hand firmly. Her mother insisted he sit and relax. Her younger brother immediately challenged him to a video game match. And then dinner came. Mashed potatoes, roasted chicken, vegetables seasoned lightly. Simple food, yet offered with genuine warmth. Emily's father cracked terrible jokes. Her mother asked gentle questions about his hobbies. Jiro realized something unsettling. None of them expected anything from him. No loyalty, no information, no repayment. They just liked him. That night, as he washed dishes with Emily, he whispered the question he couldn't silence. "Why are you all being so kind?" Emily shrugged. "Because kindness is free, and because everyone deserves it, enemy or not." His chest tightened. No one in his life had ever said something like that. A week later, a U.S. Air Force officer arrived, Captain Marcus Hale, tall, steady, polite. He didn't threaten Jiro. He didn't interrogate him. He simply sat across from him in the hospital room and folded his hands. "We know you weren't found with weapons," Hale said. "We know the storm took you down, and we're not here to punish you." Jiro's training clashed with the calmness in Hale's voice. "Are you here to extract information?" Jiro asked stiffly. Hale shook his head. "We're here to understand, and to make sure your rights are protected." Rights. A word Jiro had only heard used as a warning, never as a promise. Slowly, shakily, he told Hale the truth. The mission, the crash, his training, his fears. When he finished, Hale nodded. "Thank you for your honesty. You will be treated humanely. That's not a negotiation, it's our law." Jiro didn't know whether to feel relief or confusion. His world had never operated on laws designed to protect the vulnerable. He was transferred to a secure but comfortable military residential facility. It was nothing like a prison. He had a small room with a bed, a desk, even a window. He could choose what to read. He could ask for news or documentaries. He could watch debates on TV, debates where citizens openly criticized their leaders. No one censored them. No one arrested them. America wasn't the utopia his country claimed it pretended to be. It had flaws, divisions, passionate arguments. But it had something else, too. Freedom. Messy, unpredictable, loud freedom. And people who cared about strangers. He had been taught Americans were selfish. Yet he saw volunteers helping flood victims, neighbors comforting each other, communities gathering for charity events. The truth was not what he had been fed. And once truth appears, lies cannot survive. At his small desk, Jiro wrote a letter to his parents. He told them he was alive. He told them he was being treated well. He wanted to tell them everything, the kindness, the freedom, the warmth. But he knew such statements could be dangerous. Authorities might intercept the letter. So instead, he wrote something subtle, something hopeful. "I hope one day," he penned carefully, "we can speak openly about the world." He stared at the words for a long time. He didn't know if the letter would ever reach them. He didn't know if his parents feared him, or mourned him, or hated him. But he sent it anyway. Hope was the only weapon he had left. The peace didn't last. One morning, alarms sounded through the base. Guards rushed past Jiro's door. Voices boomed through hallways. Another survivor had been found. Another soldier from Jiro's homeland. His name was Ryota Nakamura, one of Jiro's former classmates. Once his rival. Once the boy who mocked Jiro for being too soft, too curious, too questioning. Now he sat strapped to a hospital bed, thrashing, screaming curses in their native language. "They're tricking you, Jiro," Ryota spat when Jiro approached. "They're softening you with comfort. You're falling for it." Jiro saw something in Ryota's eyes, not hatred, fear, raw, trembling fear. Jiro remembered that fear. He had felt it too, the moment he realized the enemy might not be monsters, but humans. Jiro placed a hand on the bed rail. "Ryota," he said quietly, "not everything we were taught was true." Ryota glared, but his eyes flickered. A crack in the wall, a seed planted, the beginning of change. Days passed, and Ryota's screams grew quieter. Jiro visited him every morning, always waiting for the guard's nod of approval before stepping inside. He spoke softly, telling Ryota small stories about life around the base, about the volunteers who came to deliver books and run activities, about the quiet moments he found reading under the window. Ryota didn't respond at first. He stared at the ceiling. He refused food. But Jiro stayed. One evening, exhausted from trying so hard to help, Jiro sat alone in the cafeteria. Emily spotted him. "You look like you're carrying the world," she said, sliding into the seat opposite him. Jiro sighed. "Ryota isn't changing. He still thinks all of this is manipulation." Emily folded her arms. "When someone's whole life has been fear, kindness feels dangerous." Her words hit him harder than he expected. Emily looked at him thoughtfully. "Can I tell you something, Jiro?" He nodded. "When you were brought in, I didn't think you'd trust any of us. You had these walls around you, painful walls, but you let them fall one by one. Most people never do that in their whole lives." Jiro stared down at his hands. "What if I'm wrong?" he whispered. "What if Ryota is right and I've been fooled?" Emily leaned forward, voice steady. "Jiro, someone tricking you doesn't give you freedom. Someone respecting your choices does. You're choosing who you want to be. That's not manipulation. It's courage." Courage. A word Jiro had never associated with himself. Not until Emily said it. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Jiro entered Ryota's room early one morning and found him sitting upright, eyes tired, hands trembling, but awake in a different way. "Jiro," Ryota rasped, "why are you still coming here?" Jiro sat beside him. "Because someone did that for me. And because you don't deserve to go through this alone." Ryota's voice cracked. "We were taught that compassion makes you weak." Jiro shook his head. "I think compassion is what kept me alive." Silence settled between them. Ryota's shoulders slumped. "I don't understand any of this," he admitted. "Everything we believed, everything we were told. If it isn't true, then what was all of it for?" Jiro's chest ached. "I asked myself the same thing, but not knowing is better than clinging to lies." Ryota swallowed hard. For the first time, he looked at Jiro not with anger, but with fear. And that fear was the first step toward truth. Weeks later, both Jiro and Ryota were summoned to a review board, an official tribunal that would determine their future. The room was modest. The American flag hung behind a row of officers and legal representatives. Captain Hale was there, standing in quiet support. Jiro felt Ryota trembling beside him. An older officer addressed them. "This hearing will determine your status under international law. You both have the right to representation. You both have the right to speak or remain silent." Rights again. Jiro's stomach twisted. They questioned him first. "Do you wish to return to your country? Do you believe you would be safe there? Do you fear political or military punishment? Do you wish to seek asylum?" Jiro's voice was steady when he answered, "I do not wish to return. I want to stay, where I am allowed to think for myself." Gasps rippled through a few observers. Ryota was next. He hesitated for a long time. Then he looked at Jiro, just a flicker, and spoke. "I want asylum too." It was the bravest thing Ryota had ever said. The tribunal granted them temporary protective status while their cases were reviewed. It wasn't freedom yet, but it was a door their old world would have never allowed. Their defection reached their home country faster than either of them expected. State-controlled media plastered their faces everywhere. Traitors. Corrupted by Western weakness. Brainwashed by American lies. Jiro watched footage in horror, crowds burning his picture in the streets where he once walked as a boy. Ryota clenched his fists until his knuckles went white. "They hate us." "No," Jiro said softly. "They fear the possibility that we're telling the truth." But then something unexpected happened. Captain Hale entered their room holding a file. "You two need to see this." Inside were dozens of anonymous messages gathered through secure diplomatic channels. From people inside their home country. "I want to know what Jiro saw. Is America really different than we were taught? My brother disappeared for asking questions. Please tell Jiro to stay safe. Ryota, if you can hear this, we miss you." Not everyone believed the propaganda. Truth had begun to seep through cracks. Small cracks, but cracks spread. When their protective status was approved, Jiro and Ryota were allowed supervised integration into civilian life. They moved into a modest shared apartment near an immigrant assistance center. Jiro found work helping new arrivals fill out forms, translate documents, and adjust to American systems. He wasn't perfect at English yet, but he worked hard, and he found purpose. One day, an older woman from Ukraine clasped his hands and said, "You understand. You know what it's like, coming from a place that tells only half stories." Jiro smiled gently. "I understand." Ryota struggled more. He had nightmares. Trust didn't come easily. But Jiro stayed by his side, and slowly, Ryota began volunteering too, teaching self-discipline through martial arts classes for immigrant teens. Bit by bit, their new lives took shape, not through grand opportunities, but through small acts of rebuilding. The world is strange sometimes. One afternoon, while Jiro was shelving donated books, a familiar voice called, "Hey, you're the guy from the hospital." Jiro turned. The same boy, the one with oversized glasses, clutching a brand new comic. "You read the one I gave you?" the boy asked eagerly. Jiro chuckled. "I did. What did you think?" Jiro held the book gently, remembering the hospital corridors, the loneliness, the confusion. "The hero wasn't what I expected," Jiro said. The boy nodded knowingly. Heroes usually aren't. A truth so simple, yet so profound. The boy left shortly after, hopping down the steps, whistling. And Jiro stood there, smiling to himself. Some people enter your life for only a moment, but leave fingerprints that never fade. One cold evening, Jiro's phone buzzed with an unknown international number. His heart lurched. He answered. The voice on the other end was trembling, barely above a whisper. Jiro, my son, is it really you? Jiro froze, his breath caught. Tears blurred his vision. Mother? She sobbed softly. We were told you died. Then we saw the news, the trials. They punished your father when he tried to defend your name. Jiro clenched the phone. What? Is he okay? He is alive, she said, but watched. We all are. Silence, heavy, painful. Then she whispered the words he least expected. Jiro, tell me what you saw. Tell me what is real. Jiro's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her everything, every kindness, every truth, every moment that shattered the lies. But he also knew speaking too openly could endanger her. So he said softly, Mother, someday soon I will show you. Not now, but one day. She understood. A mother always does. The call awakened something deep inside Jiro. He realized his story wasn't just his own. It belonged to those still trapped in silence, those who feared questions, feared truth, feared freedom. But he also realized something else. If he spoke too loudly, the government back home would punish his parents. Emily sat with him on a park bench later that week. Wind rustled the leaves. You can't save everyone at once, she said. The people you love need time, space, safety. Jiro looked at the sky. I want them to see what I've seen. They will, Emily said, but some journeys must begin slowly. Jiro nodded. He chose caution. He chose patience. He chose hope. And hope is a stronger weapon than fear. Months passed. One rainy afternoon, Jiro found a package at the immigration center's door. No sender, no markings, just his name. Confused, he opened it. Inside was a worn, water-damaged comic book. His breath caught. It was the same comic the boy had given him at the hospital. But this wasn't his copy. This one had traveled. Across oceans, across borders, across risk. Inside the cover, written in small, secret handwriting. We found this in your village before we escaped. Jiro's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Dozens of handwritten messages filled the margins. Jiro, we know the truth. Your story reached us. People are questioning things now. You gave us courage we didn't know we had. We're proud of you. He sank to his knees. His story, his survival, his choice, had inspired others back home. He had believed he lost his village, but they had found him. The community hall was small, but filled with people, immigrants, students, refugees, curious locals. Some came to learn English. Some came seeking guidance. Some came simply to listen. Jiro stood at the front, holding the comic book with trembling fingers. Emily sat in the front row. Ryota stood beside him. Captain Hale watched from the doorway. Jiro began speaking, not loudly, but with certainty. I grew up believing the world outside my border was broken, weak, dangerous, but I was wrong. He looked into the faces of people who understood fear and uncertainty. When I was captured, I expected cruelty. Instead, I found kindness from strangers, who became family. He lifted the comic. I thought I had lost everything. Instead, I found something new, truth. And truth is powerful, not because it destroys, but because it frees. The room was silent. I don't know what my future will look like. I don't know what will happen to my homeland. But I know this. The world you fear may be kinder than the world that taught you to fear it. Emily wiped a tear. Ryota stood taller, and Jiro, for the first time ever, felt fully, undeniably free. His story wasn't ending, it was beginning. A story built not on propaganda, fear, or obedience, but on discovery, on truth, on hope, and hope, once lit, is impossible to extinguish.